Briefly up here, we've kind of been through the introduction. I want to sort of take a step back and talk about what's driving change within our market and within our industry, because, you know, we have seen a real rapid pace of change from, you know, ultimately, you know, historically always using a single-use product to moving away from that. I want to explain to you what's driving that, the pace of which it's being driven, and you know what we expect to happen within the coming years, which will accelerate that change even further. I want to talk to you a bit about how we created this solution as well, because as I said earlier, this solution's been a couple of years in the making, and as I said again, and I'll repeat it probably a few times, it's actually come through listening to people like yourselves. You know, you're the guys who are either the bar operators, the brand owners, the venues who have all experienced the heartache of trying to run a reusable cup system or are looking to switch from a single-use to a reusable cup system. So we've listened and we've tried to deliver on what you have told us you think you need, and it'll be interesting to get your feedback on that later. We think in order for this to be a success, we've got to get the consumer to come on the journey with us, and we've got to get them to change behaviour. And changing behaviour is pretty topical, because if I had said to you that 18 months ago that we were all going to be locked up and in lockdown for a year, you would have thought I was bloody mad. But I'll tell you what, we've changed our behaviour. We're changing our behaviour here. We're only allowed to sit in groups of 6. When we get up, we've got to wear a mask. So behaviour change is actually something that is ultimately achievable. What you've got to do is you've got to make it simple for the customer to understand. And if you can make it simple for the customer to understand, you'll deliver on it. One of the biggest myths around about the reusable solution is that it will cost more. Do you know what? It probably is going to cost you a bit more. But don't think about it what the cost per cup is. Think about it in a couple of different ways. One of the ways I look at it is, if we look at one way is the environmental impact. Another way to look at it is the consumer experience as well. And we've all had pretty bad consumer experiences where you've gone into a field, you've paid £6 for a pint, and you've been given it in a paper cup. Now, there's a lot of people put a lot of effort into getting that beer delivered to you cold and fresh, and then we kind of put it into a paper cup and charge people £6 for it. What we're designing is actually hopefully giving you that premium solution that allows you to charge that premium price. But we want to then flip that further, because we think we can help you turn this into a profit generator as opposed to a cost. I'm then going to hand over to John, who's going to talk through the Green Champions Award and explain more about Clean Up Britain and what they do. Clean Up Britain is somebody that we've been associated with now for over 12 months, and they've been instrumental in helping us grow from where we came. And you know, we'll talk a bit more about the allegiances and the alliances that we've given there. And then at the end, we'll summarise, and if you want to have a Q&A, we can do that. If you want to do it in the garden where it's nice and sunny over a beer, we can do it there as well. Okay, whatever you fancy. So before we kick off, and I was in two minds whether to show this tonight, and I had a conversation with Bly from Onyx Events on Sunday, an event we did with them, and I told them I wasn't going to show this, but I changed my mind. So I'd just like to run a very short video for you.
So I'm going to hand over now to Sir David Attenborough.
May I plead that today there are threats to security of a new and unprecedented kind. These threats do not divide us. They are threats which should unite us, no matter from which part of the world we come, for they face us all. They are rising global temperatures. We are today perilously close to tipping points that, once passed, will send global temperatures spiraling catastrophically higher. If we continue on our current path, we will face the collapse of everything that gives us our security. Food production, access to fresh water, habitable ambient temperature, and ocean food chains. And if the natural world can no longer support the most basic of our needs, then much of the rest of civilization will quickly break down. Please make no mistake. Climate change is the biggest threat to security that modern humans have ever faced.
Now you might think, what the hell is he putting a video of David Attenborough on when we're here to talk about reusable cups? So there is a link there. But 15, 16 months ago when lockdown happened, I took the opportunity to go on a carbon literacy course. And it really opened up my eyes. And I would encourage you, part of my role as somebody who's now carbon literate is to encourage other people to become carbon literate. There is a link between climate crisis and what we are trying to achieve here. And hopefully that will become obvious as we go through. What none of us kind of avoided over the years is the impact of the media and what that's had on our industry. You know, we've seen things like Blue Planet and Sky Ocean Rescue all having huge impacts on what we do on a day-to-day basis. You know, believe it or not, 2015, the term single-use plastic had hardly been heard. It was not part of our vocabulary. It's now part of our everyday vocabulary. That's because it was media-driven. And they've done a great job in highlighting a lot of the issues that are out there. It's actually got to the point now, and again, going back to the impact of people like Sir David Attenborough and what they have in our day-to-day lives. Sir David Attenborough, when I was growing up, was a guy that used to be pictured in a field with a zebra in Africa. Yeah? Now he's the guy who's the catalyst, who's driving change, who's addressing people at the UN Security Councils about climate change. As a result of that, Sky now run twice daily a 1-hour programme on climate change on primetime TV every day. That's raising people's awareness. That's the impact of the media, and that will affect every one of us as we sit around this room, as bar operators, as venue operators, as drinks brands. It will impact all of us. Next slide. And I think this really sums it up perfectly. We're all just coming out of COVID. And if we thought that COVID had a devastating impact on our businesses, our lives, and our livelihoods, it bears nothing when it comes to, when you can compare it to climate change. And this is really something that I'd encourage you all to consider when you're making any decision in your day-to-day life and in your business. I don't want to turn this into a David Attenborough show, but I just think it's really important that everybody understands where we're coming from. So, what is the One Planet, One Chance reusable system? Well, ultimately, this is something that we want to be part of your everyday business. It's part of your solution and part of your it's part of your toolbox that you can take to customers that will reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, which will help us, you know, fight climate change and will help us reduce our carbon impact. We see this as being something that you utilize as being a strength within each of your businesses, because it should become part of your sustainability story, and that's really what we've tried to design into this as well. Is it just us that's pushing it this way? The answer is no, because when we go through some consumer research, we can actually tell that this is what the consumer's asking for as well. This is some research that was done by GCA that shows that 83% of festival goers expect all festivals to attend to tackle their environmental impacts, and they expect that the festivals are, they attend to be sustainable within their locality. That's 83%. You know, that's more than 4/5. Yeah, next slide, please. I think some other pretty key statistics as well is that 24% of festival goers say they'd be more likely to attend a festival if its carbon footprint were demonstrably lower than its competitors. And I think the other statistic we heard was that festival goers go to 2 festivals or 1.9 festivals a year. If they're only going to 1.9 festivals a year, and 1 in 4 are saying that they're unlikely to come back if you don't do the right thing environmentally, then you're putting quite a large percentage of your business at risk by not doing the right thing. Here are just some items, top line again, on the top 5 items that festival goers think organisers should limit at festivals. And right in the sweet spot there is single-use plastic cups. So 61% of festival goers said that they should limit single-use plastic cups, or they would like to see single-use plastic cups limited at events. It's interesting to note as well that single-use plastic food trays are just behind that. And this is the one, the statistic that jumps out most at the bottom, but we'll just run through these. Based again on the voice of the customer. If you were to visit a festival which didn't appear to actively support the limit of single-use plastic, what impact would this have on your perception of the festival? 38% said they'd have a worse perception of the festival, but it wouldn't impact how likely they would be to attend in the future. So nearly 40% said, don't really care. 27% said that their perception wouldn't change, but again, a quarter said that their perception would be worse and they'd be unlikely to return. Again, that's that 1 in 4 number, which is pretty scary. I think if we were all to do some consumer research round about our businesses, and if we found that 1 in 4 of our customers were unlikely to come back because of any action that we were taking, we would pretty quickly look at that action and try and change the way we're behaving. And again, just looking at some more consumer research, are consumers demanding sustainable products? Answer's yes. Consumers' awareness of sustainability has increased and it's continuing to grow. 4 out of 5 are changing their purchasing habits based on sustainability, and companies who implement sustainable practices are seeing revenues growing. On the flip side of that, companies that aren't doing that are putting large percentages of their business at risk. So when you take the whole climate change thing going on in the background, and then you take all these statistics that were presented to you, which is the voice of your customer. And we've all got to listen to our customers, because if we don't listen to our customers, they're going to piss off somewhere else. So all of that begs one question. Why are we still using single use? Well, I've got some answers to that. If you just go to the next slide, Simon, thanks. This kind of sums it up. Single use was easy and cheap. That's why we used it. And there were no boundaries, and there were no outside factors that were influencing us. So it was easy, it was cheap. But on the other side of that, reusables, bloody hell, they were difficult. Reusable solution. You've got to deliver cups and then I've got to send them back. Who's going to wash them? Are they going to be clean? How do they get here? And the perception was that it was an expensive solution. So going back then, single use was easy and cheap, therefore that's what you went for. Reusable, difficult and expensive. What's going to change that? Well, we've got the voice of the customer is already telling us that he wants you to change, but now you've got a whole set of different problems coming into play, and this is legislation. The legislative changes that are coming along, the catalyst to this came about in May 2018, and it was the EU directive on single-use plastics. Now that was first published in 2018. The final draft, the final transposition of that document was published on the 31st of May, a couple of weeks ago. It's about 70 pages, I'm still reading through it, but ultimately the outcome is still going to be the same. What the EU directive on single use basically did, it was the EU across all the member states did a number of beach cleaning surveys, and they identified the 10 most commonly found items and said, right, okay, these are the 10 items or the 10 categories of products that we're going to focus on. And if we focus on all of them, we're going to solve a lot of the marine litter issues. So what they did is they then put in 3 courses of action depending on the category. So the first category being, if a sustainable alternative is available, then the product would go under market restriction, and market restriction means it would be banned. So that's when you had things like straws, drink straws, and cotton buds. So those will now be banned across Europe. The UK government, they jumped first on that one, and they actually banned it before the EU did. And I think that, again, that was down to just gaining some political brownie points. In the other two areas, it's kind of where we fall into, and it's consumption reduction and product markings. So where no sustainable alternative is available, that covers beverage containers, coffee cups, and food containers. Then there will be aggressive consumption reduction targets, and those will be achieved through taxation. We'll come on to that in a wee second. And then product markings, and again, that has now been implemented into EU law, that you must mark your product telling people whether it contains plastic, and if it contains plastic, how you should dispose of it. That comes into law in the EU from the 3rd of July. Okay? Now, if we just pop to the next slide, there's a further complication, because we ain't in the EU anymore. So what the hell does that mean? Well, what it means is that the UK government have declared that they will follow the directive of the EU 110%. But we've further complicated it, because we've now got devolved administrations. So we've got us jocks up in Edinburgh saying, well, we're going to do one thing. London saying we're going to do another thing. And the bloody Welsh are saying they're going to do another thing, Abbey. So the three of us have all got our own agendas. Now, ultimately what will come out of this, in my opinion, common sense will prevail and we will all follow the EU directives at some point. But what I think will happen is they may be implemented at slightly different timescales, i.e. within 6 months of each other. But I'm very, very confident to say that if I was in your shoes as an operator, I would be taking the headlines of the EU directives on single use, and I would be taking that as my course of action. That's what I should be doing. On top of what the EU are doing, the UK government are implementing some other areas as well. And again, this is to allow that consumption reduction, or those consumption reduction targets, to be achieved. So firstly, from the 4th of April 2022, there will be a £200 per tonne increase on the cost of single-use packaging, single-use plastic packaging, unless it contains 30% recycled content. Now, the difficulty with that is that a lot of the recycled content that's coming out just now, and I'm talking particularly about PET, is being gobbled up by the big brands, by the Coca-Colas of this world. They are buying as much of that as they possibly can, the PepsiCos of this world, to get it back into their product. The fact of the matter is there is not enough recycled material out there, because there isn't a big enough recycling infrastructure in the countries to generate enough of the recycled PET. So the cost of single use will go up through the plastics tax. On top of that, the Resource and Waste Strategy has introduced extended producer responsibility, which I believe will come in January 2022. It's at consultation stage at this moment in time. And that basically means that the producer will pay for the cost of disposal of the product. What that will mean is that it's going to push the cost of single-use plastic up further. Deposit return schemes, January 2022, that's at the consultation stage. My estimate would be January 22 will happen in Scotland. I think it's likely to come in maybe a year later in England. And then the last one, which is coming along, is called the latte levy, which is basically every time you get a cup, or you're given a cup, or you buy a coffee, or you buy a beer, you have to pay 20p a cup. Now that has actually been introduced in Scotland already in 2022. And everybody must think that's bloody madness. You can't get away with that. Why would that ever happen? Would they really do this? Well, in actual fact, it's already been done. Here's the precedent. 2015, they launched the plastic bag tax. And the results of that are pretty startling from a consumption reduction perspective, but a revenue generation perspective. So if you take this, that in 2015 we were going through 7.6 billion bags. That has dropped by 90%. But it's raised 400 million in revenue for the coffers of the government. So hang on a minute. We ain't using as much plastic, and it pocketed us 400 million a year. What's not to love about that if you're Rishi Sunak? You know, so that is unfortunately the path that we're going on. But here's the even more bonkers thing. I remember going into places and being charged 5p for a plastic bag. Bloody hell, I'm paying 30p for a plastic bag everywhere I go. And a bag for life, it doesn't last me a week. But it just shows you how your mindset has changed. And we've all changed behaviour, because we're all taking bloody bags in our car and taking them back, and you know, it's working. You know, that has worked. And that's kind of the mentality and the journeys that we're on. So let's get back to reusables. What were the issues around about reusables? And again, you know, a lot of this is coming back from the operators, the brands, the venues that we've spoken to. And we've kind of cushioned this into 5 different areas. Firstly, customization. Customization was always a problem. Why? Probably, well, various things like lead times. So how many people have got a customer who's come to them and said, I want 20,000 cups next year. I want to have Ed Sheeran on them. By the way, my event is in 2 weeks' time. Right? So customization created issues because of specifics around about timescales. But customization also caused problems where cups were not being used or have never been used. I met up with one bar operator in London just before lockdown who told me that she still had 15,000 Ed Sheeran cups in a warehouse from an event in 2018 that have never been used and can't be used because they made the fatal error of putting the date of the tour on the cup. So the irony of that is those cups weren't even single use. So this whole fan cup, souvenir cup kind of model, we were thinking it was okay, maybe it was okay at the time, but we think it's kind of dated now. Then you've got the cost. You know, the cost of a reusable cup, that was alien. Well, why? Because companies like Heineken, and you know, I benefited from this, I sold them to Heineken for years, but companies like Heineken would supply events, venues, festivals, cups as part of their ongoing commercial package. So the cost of a single-use cup was nothing to them. It was almost seen to be part of their marketing support package. So that was a big difference. Then you've got the management of the cups on site. Bloody hell, that's difficult. You know, hang on a minute, I'm used to getting a box of Flexis in, there's 1,000 in a box, I pour a pint, and at the end of it, a cleaning crew comes up, takes them away, the problem's gone, I've never seen it again. All of that's changed. You know, China won't take our shit anymore. Turkey are going to stop taking our shit anymore. You know, we cannot recycle our way out of this problem. But that was a big part of the issue, was the management of reusable cups, because it was new, you know, and because, let's be honest, the people in this room have all got really special skill sets. We've got bar operators who turn up and produce magnificent bars at events that serve people quickly. We've got brewers that turn up and turn a field into a brilliant pub serving ice-cold beer. You know, we've got stadiums that put on world-class performances. You know, we've got race courses that welcome guests week in, week out and deliver a world-class solution. I can't do any of that. I can't even do one of those things. So how could we expect you to manage a reusable system on cups, and how could we expect you to change your way of thinking? It's difficult. Those of you that have known me a long time know that in my early years I worked for Scottish and Newcastle, and we had a managing director, a guy called Robin Alexander, and we used to be based out in this shitty old office on the east end of Edinburgh, but it was ours, we owned it. You know, and that was it was a Scottish and Newcastle building. And then when he became MD, he moved us into these plush rented offices in South Gale Park. And at the first conference, you know, when he was asked the question, why have we moved from, you know, our own house to these rented accommodations, he said, let me just put this really, really clear to you. He says, we are brilliant at brewing beer, packaging beer, marketing beer, and selling beer. We're not great at managing properties. We're not great at looking after buildings. We're not great at, this is before facilities management companies came on board, and that was kind of the birth of facilities management companies. So what he was saying is, look, we're great at doing our things. We're going to employ experts who are experts in their field to do what they can do. And that's kind of the mantra that we're taking here as well. Then we've got deposit return schemes. Everybody loves them. The customer loves them because he's got to put £1 out. He's then got to queue up in a massive queue to get his cup back, to get his £1 back. Or he's going to say, do you know what, after the game at Twickenham, I'm going to keep my cup. I'm going to take it home with me. And then he gets on the tube and he thinks, nah, do you know what? I'm going to go into town and have a few beers. Next thing you know, the cup gets lobbed. Now, that's a problem. Not only because it's been a very expensive and heavyweight single-use cup, but you've then got a lot of negative brand association. So if your brand is Guinness, or if your brand is Budweiser or Heineken or whatever that would be, the last thing you want that is to see that littered around about the streets. The other issue with deposit return schemes is it was handling lots and lots of cash as well, so there was some security risks around about that. And generally, it was deemed to be clunky, although people did think that that's what would pay for the cup. You've got to then balance it. Was the profit versus the hassle worth it? I don't know. And then the last one, which I think is everybody's favourite, is the loss charges. So I'm going to sell you, I'm going to rent you a cup, I'm going to deliver it, I'm going to collect it, and I'm going to charge you next to nothing for doing that. But if you lose any, I'm going to cripple you. I'm going to hang you for losing my cup. And okay, that might be a bit steep in terms of the language, but ultimately, nobody knew what their loss charges were going to be. So it was a gamble. So you were playing a gamble. Now, if you were paying 30p, 40p, 50p, okay, you might know up front how much you're paying per cup. But are you going to lose 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%? You've got no idea. So these are all the things that we thought about when we were looking to redesign the solution. Yep. Just want to go through some of these in a bit of detail. So the customization. These were on trend early. Everybody wanted to have their name on a cup. Everybody wanted to have their brand on a cup. And everybody wanted to have a picture of Johnny Wilkinson on a cup. Why wouldn't you? But how sustainable were they? What happens when it leaves the venue? The littering problem, as I mentioned, you had issues with MOQs and cups not being used. But they really were a method of revenue generation. So I understand why it was done. I just don't agree with the principle. Next one. Management was a problem. Well, why was it a problem? Well, because the volume is greater than single use, so more space was needed. So all of a sudden, you've got a pallet which used to hold 18,000 cups, now holds 5,000. So you need 3.5 times as much space to hold the same number of cups. Now, if you're an event like the Isle of Wight, and you're going through 280 to 300,000 cups, that's a lot of space that you're going to need for an event. So how the hell do you manage that? Well, do you know what? That's difficult for you as bar operators, as brewers, as venues, as festival organisers. So we get that and we understand why that's difficult. It's not just a case of putting these single-use cups into cardboard boxes and chucking them away. They've got to go into reusable crates. For your information, our crates are all made of recycled plastic. The movement of the cups to the various bars across the sites was problematic because typically these are delivered on a pallet network, right? And your bloke from DPD or from pallet line comes along and he dumps the pallets on a site, and because he's got another 22 pallets that he needs to get off, it's kind of difficult to get him to have that relationship with you to distribute those across the site. That may not happen in every case, but in a number of cases it did. Then you've got the problem with the collection and the management of the collection, the count back. The problem with the DRS is complicated because you've got people involved, you've got cash involved, and you've got queues. And also, the next slide I want to really just look at is how well did DRS really work? Because I think there's some pretty big questions here. So DRS works that customer comes along, pays his £1 or his £2 or however much you want to charge him, and he gets his fan cup or his souvenir cup. Now, the three outcomes that you can see on the right side is one, he takes the cup home and he doesn't get his deposit back. Two, he gives the cup back and he gets his money back, so refund the deposit. And the three, he chucks it on the floor, he can't be arsed bringing it back, so why would he? So just looking at each of them, if he takes it home, that's actually the least sustainable solution because ultimately it's become a single-use cup. And don't tell me that you're going to take it home and use it. Because there's people that take them home and they've got cupboards filled with Twickenham cups, they've got cupboards filled with, they don't use them. And ultimately, what happens to that at the end of its life? Maybe a small percentage are used, I might be being overcritical there. But if he takes it home for the operator, that's the easiest to execute and it generates revenue. So that is the one that the operator wants to happen. He wants to get the £1 and he wants the customer to take it away, never see the cup again. But ultimately, that is the least sustainable solution. So let's go back to the start and we're going to say, look, if we're going to take this whole bloody climate change thing seriously, let's take it seriously, right? Let's not take the easy option and say, well, we don't want people to bring their cups back. Bollocks to that. We want our cups back. You know, our model's not a fan cup, it's not a souvenir cup. We don't want you taking our cups home. They're our cups. We want them back. But if you look at, if he discards it on site, it's sustainable because we get it back, but there's difficulty in the execution because you've got to bloody find the cup and bring it back. But it still generates revenue for the operator. The refunding of the deposit is the most sustainable, but importantly, it's the most difficult to execute and it doesn't generate any revenue for the operator. So that explains the problems with deposit return schemes in my opinion. To sum it up, the most sustainable solution is difficult to execute and it costs the most money. Yeah. So if we look at cost and loss charges, you know, the cost of this was generally funded through the deposit return scheme. Typical cost, 7p a cup, plus delivery, plus collection, plus cup losses. And that made it impossible. You could never know what was the cost per drink of what your cup system was. You were basing it on an estimation of how many cups you would lose. So, the voice of the customer is now telling us it's time to change. Legislation, trust me, is going to make it much more difficult and is going to push the cost of single use up and up and up and up. But I just want to finish this part of the slides by taking the words of a guy called Eamon Bates, who's the Secretary General of an organisation called Pack to Go Europe. And they're basically the body that oversees the whole of packaging across the whole of Europe for the food service and the sectors that we operate in. And his words at the FPA Environmental Conference in 2020 before lockdown was, ignore the EU directives on single-use plastics at your peril. The future of packaging in our sector lies with sustainable, reusable solutions. I was at that conference and I wanted to stand up and applaud loudly and shout, get in there, Eamon. But I thought that might have been just a wee bit too blatant, but there you go. Next slide. So, I'm going to go back to the slide I showed you a wee while ago. And then, single-use cups were easy and cheap, and reusables were difficult and expensive. Now, that's different. Single use is unsustainable and really, really bad for your business. Yeah? Reusable We're going to show you now that it's easy and it's good for your business. So the tables have turned. So we're going to take you through how the system works now, and we want to dispel the myth that reusables are complicated. Okay, go. So designing the reusable system, what does a great reusable system look like? Again, thank you to everybody who helped me design this. There's many of you in the room. We start with a definition of reusable. The definition of reusable is to be able to be used again or more than once. Our goal is to deliver a range of products for you, not just cups, but a range of products for the event sector that can be used again and again and again and again and again. Now, how can we do that? What makes us different from other people out there? Event Cup Solutions is a business which Les at the back there and myself pulled together nearly 2 years ago now. But Les's other business is a business called Event Hire, which some of you may already be customers of Event Hire. Now, what Event Hire has is an unbelievable infrastructure which we can tap into at Event Cup Solutions. And just to give you a bit of a flavour, Event Hire has been established 15 years and they're market leaders within their sector. They specialise in the events, sports, leisure and hospitality sector. So it's a sector that they understand, and they understand really, really well. But I think more importantly, they've got a team of people that understand that sector and know it really, really well. So that team of people are at our disposal, that we can tap into that resource and utilise that resource because they already understand that. The size of the company, they've got over 100 employees across 4 locations, fleet of 30 vehicles. So what we're able to tap into is that existing infrastructure. And it must be, you know, if you think about it, we are a very young company, but with the skill set that we've got behind us with Event Hire and the skill set that we've got here at Event Cup Solutions, actually gives us a unique set of core competencies that none of our competitors have. Just to give you a bit of a flavour, we've got 4 regional wash centres dotted across the country. We've got one near Twickenham in London. The facility there, we put a new wash machine in there in December, and that is capable of washing over 1 million cups a week. It's the only wash facility within the M25 capable of hitting that capacity. And we've got a lot of space to fill, so if anybody's got any cups they want to wash, we'll be glad to help them. Our other specific cup washing facility is up in the Midlands in Walsall. Again, we've got a machine there that's capable of washing in excess of 1 million cups a week. We then have 2 other depots up in Manchester and Yorkshire, and we've just, earlier this year again, as we go through lockdown, we've had a grant approved by the Tees Valley Combined Authorities to open up a facility in Teesside. Unfortunately for us, that's come at a time when Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, Ben Houchin and all the MPs up there have fallen in love with Teesside and are pumping so much money into the area that we cannot get any commercial property. So if anybody knows of any nice wee commercial properties in the Teesside area, we'd be glad to know that. But what that does is that gives us national coverage, yeah? And when we did an exercise for one of the big multi-site venues recently, we did an analysis of miles travelled. And these guys were going through about 8 million cups a year. And what we could demonstrate to them was taking their venues and mapping out their venues and the number of miles travelled. We could reduce the number of miles travelled by about 70%, which, you know, is not insignificant. In terms of efficiency, we use only the most energy and water efficient machines out there in the market. But you think washing cups is easy, right? I mean, anybody can wash cups. I mean, it must be as simple as just going buying a dishwasher and then, you know, plugging it in, shoving it through, and they'll come out the other end and we'll just put them back into service. It doesn't quite work that way. What we want to do now is just show you a wee bit of video that explains a bit about what we do, how we do, and the process behind it. Thanks. That's the machine that's up at the Walsall site. The machine that's in the site in London's capable of doing the same quantities and very, very similar, although they are different in what the way they dry cups. I'm not going to go into that. If you want to talk to Les about that later, go speak to Les. He knows more about that than me. So the reusable system, it's a fully managed solution, yeah? So we want to basically take ownership of the whole program of reusable cups from you. Research that we did with a number of brands and a number of operators is they no longer wanted to put their brand on cups, but what they did see was the opportunity to benefit from strong environmental messaging on the cups. So we developed a brand called One Planet, One Chance, and that is our strong environmental brand. And all of the cups that we put out there have got the One Planet, One Chance logo and the reuse me, return me message on the back. So it's got powerful consumer messages. It's not a fan cup. It's not a souvenir cup. We want our bloody cups back. We don't want anybody to take them home. And we think it's designed to meet the needs of the market. Utilising our experience and infrastructure with the capacity, and we've got the capacity to deliver this, and we've got plans for growth. Next slide. So what does a fully managed solution look like? Well, we leverage the brand. So the One Planet, One Chance is our brand, but we want that to be your brand. We want you to take that as your solution to the market and to the customer. And we want you to be proud to be associated with One Planet, One Chance in the same way that we will be proud to be associated to you. You get to leverage the brand and a lot of the support materials, and I'm going to cover those off in a wee second as well. We deliver our cups to you in our trucks driven by our people. We'll give you a 1 hour time slot when we're going to deliver them, and we'll give you the driver's number so that if there's any problems or any delays, you're always going to get in touch with them. Well then, when we get to site, we're going to take the cups to all of your buyers and all of your kiosks, and all of that will be done by our on-site team, the One Planet, One Chance Cup crews. So we will deploy people onto site to do all of this for you as part of our all-inclusive service. We'll supply and manage cup return points and bin infrastructure. We've got some examples of some smaller stuff that we can do here tonight. We'll show them to you a bit later on. We'll manage the cup movements during your events. What does that mean? Well, we'll make sure the bars are always stocked, and we'll make sure that the bars don't have any empties stuck behind the bars, so we'll make sure that all of that's taken away, and our cup crews will take that back to their dedicated location on site, and we'll just make sure that you never run out of cups. Everybody that I know probably gets sick of me saying this, but I've been brought up with running with the golden rule of KFC, and the golden rule of KFC is don't run out of chicken. Our job is to make sure that you never run out of cups, and we'll make sure that happens. When your event is finished, we'll collect the cups, we'll take them back in our trucks, driven by our people, and we'll wash them, we'll dry them, we'll put them back in the box, and then get ready for the next event again. But I think the biggest thing about this whole thing is, because we're going to manage that and take responsibility for all of that on site, yeah, we ain't going to charge any loss charges. So our price is a fully inclusive price for everything, yeah? No ifs, no buts. I think it's pretty fair to point out at this time as well, I've been working with Bly and John and Glenn at a few events that we've been working with Onyx. We've got some great work lined up with them over the summer. And some of the smaller events, it provides some logistical challenges because the volume isn't there. So we will find solutions to manage the smaller sites, but that might look slightly different for some of the smallers. And Bly and I are working through designing that solution just now. But really, this is the solution where you've got lots of people in an area drinking lots, where you've got lots of problems associated with reusable cups. That's really what we've designed here. Next slide, please. So then we want to talk about managing the losses. As you can tell, McDonald's is a favourite of mine. That's me. I've talked about McDonald's and KFC tonight. How do we manage the losses? Well, what we want to do is we want to take the customer on a bit of a journey, and we want to educate the customer, and we want to change the way they behave. We want to make it simple, and we want to make it easy for them to follow what they should do with their cup when they've finished with it. Because bearing in mind, we ain't going to charge them a deposit, but we're going to educate them. And I've kind of based this on the McDonald's drive-through experience. And the McDonald's drive-through experience is pretty simple. Yeah, you order here, you pay here, you collect here, then go away. Take your food away, enjoy it, we'll never see you again. This works at over 1,300 sites in the UK. They've got 4 million customers a day, and the first UK drive-through was introduced in 1986. So for 35 years, we've been following their rules, and we do it every day because they tell us to order here, pay here, collect here, go away. So we can do it. So what we want to do is clear that clear, concise message to direct the customer, take them on that journey and make it clear what's expected of them and how the system works. And we want to help them by not only getting the messaging right, but the infrastructure and the people. Pre-event communications, really, really important. This is conditional. Part of the deal of us, taking on board the loss charges is the organiser has to do their bit and help us communicate the system, talk about the brand, talk about what we're going to do, talk about the environmental benefits. We want all of that. So pre-event comms, working on websites, social media, press briefings. During the event, we want to make the scheme really, really visible. We've got some stuff we can show you in a second, which I think would really, really help. But again, website, social media, infrastructure, return points, POS material on bars, and then on-site support, again, making sure that those bars and everything is very, very visible. And we want to create that clear path. This is just one example of what we're aiming to try and do. So every time we get a new customer or a new venue or a new opportunity, we want to share it. We want to tell people that we've got a new partner, Onyx Events and Onyx Bars, and we're doing big dog walks, and this is what you can expect when you get here. What they then do simultaneously is they tell their customer that they've adopted the One Planet, One Chance reusable cup system. You look forward to seeing it on site. So there's kind of synergy in our approach. And here's the rules. This is our McDonald's path. Firstly, we want them to buy your drink. Simple. Next one we want to do is to enjoy your drink. We know that you can make sure that by delivering the products that you deliver, that they're going to enjoy their drink. Then comes the really tricky bit. Bring your cup back, will you? Don't take, just please bring your cup back. But the most important message we want to get across to people is don't take your cup home. Think about how we behave when we go to the pub. Now, I know some people might nick the odd Moretti glass or the odd Heineken Star glass, but ultimately, when you go for a pint, you don't take the cup home. We want to change people's behaviour. We want to change their mentality. We want to change their way of thinking. I was at an event on Sunday, and we've got these really nice, bright, pink, bloody coffee cups. And the reason we've gone with these really bright ones is they're visible. And it is brilliant because you can spot them from a mile off when you're doing the cup crew. And there was a lady on Sunday, had two, one on each side of her haversack as she's walking towards the exit. And I just asked her if she had finished her cups. And she was very polite. She said, yes, thanks, took them out her bag and gave me them back. So she won't do that again. But ultimately, that's it. It's about just getting people to change their way of thinking. This is some of the stuff that we want to create that we would like, events, venues to use up on their screens, almost, as events go on. But you can imagine this on big jumbotrons across the screen, across venues, just explaining, what we expect people to go on. And really what we're saying is that this event supports a reusable cup scheme. It's the One Planet, One Chance reusable cup system. How it works: buy your drink, enjoy your drink, return your cup, don't take your cup home. It's that simple. So really then, on the back of that, what we've started to create is some what we call bin infrastructure. So these are some of the early pieces that we've made. They work in that people have been putting cups back into them. The last 2 Sundays I've been at events myself and emptied them. There's been a marked difference from the first week where we had lots of general waste on the event at the first week going into our bins, but with a very constructive call with the venue on the Tuesday afterwards and asked them to put general waste bins next to these, and it almost eliminated the problem. So we got what I would call an 80% clean waste stream of cups going into the cup bins. We can get better, and we will get better. There are issues with this style of bin, the transportability, but we'll work with people, we'll work with the manufacturers on getting that so that it's stackable, easier to move. But ultimately, the customer was putting cups back in the bin, which was great to see. We're working on, we've got some nice new cup return points coming. Now the cup return points, heavily branded. Again, they're not linked to any particular brand, like any particular company. It's the One Planet, One Chance reusable system, and we want to make sure that that's a message that's carried through and through. I just want to show you this wee video as well that just just shows you a bit about our product range. That was quick. I feel dizzy after that. On your tables tonight, you'll be drinking. Those of you that are having a beer are drinking out of a 22-ounce polycarbonate cup. That's something that's, again, pretty close to my heart because I've been working with the people at Heineken for 2 years to develop exactly that cup. The brief was simple: has to be clear, has to be lightweight, has to have excellent nucleation, has to be stackable, has to be made in the UK, has to be recyclable, and everything else that was pretty difficult to achieve, but we've achieved it. We expect to get 500 uses out of these cups. So the cup that you're seeing there, on recent tests carried out by young Gary here and by Steve at the back, the cup actually outperformed the Foster's glass for head retention and temperature retention. Now, Gary, on his way in tonight, kindly offered to speak to any of you about the quality of the cup and how it performed. I know time permits us from going into full product presentations tonight, but we're super proud that that is a great product. Now, that is a product that we would suggest you would use in your VIP areas, because it is maybe too heavy to be used in a field, but for a VIP product, it delivers a world-class product. Then we go into our lightweight range. Our lightweight range, which we use in the volume areas, again, stackable, branded with the One Planet, One Chance. Again, you'll see consistently we've got the branding, reuse me, return me, and that's consistent across all of our branding, whether it be the Cup Crew t-shirts, whatever you see out in the field. We've got pint and half pint available. We've got pint to line and pint to brim. It's lightweight. This is a cup that's made in the EU as well. 100% recyclable, and we would expect to get about 300 uses from those cups. We have a range of coffee cups because the problem just doesn't stop with single-use single-use cold drinks. In the UK, we use about 1.2 to 1.3 billion single-use cold drinks cups a year. In coffee cups, we use probably about 6 to 7 billion a year. So coffee cups is a bigger problem, but the majority of coffee is drunk on the go. And what you and I and the people in this room are trying to solve is a problem more around about a closed loop solution. Now, if you are in a closed loop solution and you want to switch away from single use to reusable completely, we can help you with that with the coffee cup as well. It's, again, got the reuse me, return me message. It's insulated, so it's cool to touch on the outside, keeps your drink hot. The benefit of that being as well, that you don't have to put these sleeves on the outside that you get in Starbucks. Lightweight, made in the EU, 100% recyclable, and we would expect to get 300 uses from that as well. And what we're also really excited to be pushing it, and we were aiming to get this out this year, but we kind of, we're all sort of focusing on just getting back to normal business, but we are able to deliver that this year. But we understand that the majority of people want to focus just on cups. But tonight, when you're served your supper tonight, you're going to be served it in one of our reusable food containers. Now this ultimately is perfect for the festival environment because it's a tray that will take fish and chips, will take burger and chips, will take curry and rice, will take paella, will take probably just about any type of food product. You can just imagine it with a nice wee bit of grease proof over it, but we can add that to the range as well. So really what we're able to do, it's not just about single-use drinks cups. This is about potentially eliminating single-use packaging completely. Now, when you're pitching for your next chunk of business, if you can tell your client that you have a solution where you can reduce or eliminate single-use packaging completely, well, you can now, because we can do that for you. We can do that. What does it cost? How much is this? He's going to say it's going to be expensive. Well, it isn't that expensive when you think about it. So what does our fully managed system cost? Well, firstly, all of this includes One Planet, One Chance brand, right? You get to tap into what we're doing and all the work that we're doing to develop the brand. It ain't a fan cup, it ain't a souvenir cup. We'll keep repeating that message. This is our cup. We want the bloody cup back. Yeah, but we will put the effort into getting that cup back. It removes the complexity of handling cups on sites. We'll help you give the customer clear direction to get as many cups back. Importantly, it will reduce litter across the site as well and make the site look a lot more presentable. But the biggie again, there's no loss charges. Now we'll charge 20p for that. Now I know everybody in this room will go, oof, 20p. I can get that for Green Goblet for 12p. Go for it. Go get it. But remember, you're going to be hit with loss charges. They ain't going to put the people on site. They ain't going to manage the returns. They ain't going to give you the fully managed solution. This is a fully managed solution that we'll take responsibility for. That's the difference. So it's very much, we're not comparing apples and apples here. What I also want to do is also want to talk about turning a cost into a revenue opportunity. If we look at the chart on the left here, let's say you're an event and you're using 200,000 cups over a weekend, and I'm going to say it's a paper cup because it's one of the more expensive and it makes my numbers look better. So the cost per cup is 11 pence. Yeah, you use 200,000 of them, it's 22 grand. Disposal cost per cup 5p. Total disposal cost, half a penny is 1,000. So you've got a sunk cost of 23 grand there. We suggest that now don't be scared to add the cost of what we do for you into the price of a drink, because the customer's already told you they want to go on that journey of sustainability, and we encourage you not to tell people that you're charging them for the reusable system, but to tell them that the whole solution is built into the cost of the drink. Yeah? Now, simply by putting, if you take our system, which is costing 20p, yeah, so the total cost is 40,000, charge the customer 25p, yeah, you'll generate 50,000. You've then turned a cost of 23,000 into a profit of 10,000. 2 years ago, that might have been pretty difficult. And also, you had the complexity 2 years ago. I know talking to John, he was saying one of the complexities with deposit return schemes was when somebody went to the bar with a cup, had he paid his deposit, had he not paid his deposit? This eliminates that, because you just put the cost on every drink. If you just go to the next slide, please. We are moving towards a cashless society. I'm a 54-year-old guy, and last night was the first time, I think, in about 4 months I'd ever had to pull out cash. I just don't use it anymore. I tap in, I tap out, I tap everywhere. But if you look at the statistics, 7.4 million people in the UK are living a cashless life, and that figure's doubled in the 2 years, and those are the figures pre-COVID. Yeah, that's going to be significantly higher. What cashless does is it allows you to pass that cost on much easier. Before, when you were working with cash, if you were at £5, you had to go to £6. But even at 5, going to 6 was a problem, because 2 for 10 now became 2 for 12. You're still dealing with cash. Cashless. People go to a festival, they go with their phone, they go with their card, they're going to have a good time. Do they care if it's £5.25, £5.30, £5.50? I know, again, I'll refer to the work that we've done with Onyx in the last couple of weeks, and I asked Bly the question on Sunday. He put his prices up to cover the cost of this. Not one bit of feedback. Not one. Not one person questioned the price of the product, and that price was increased to cover the cost of the system. So he's happy, because he's now got a reusable system, and he's actually made a profit from it. And again, I'll reiterate, because you know your costs are fixed with us at 20p, yeah, you're never ever going to have the problem where this is going to come back and bite you on the bum with any loss charges, because we've built that into what we do. I just want to get towards the end of my session now, and I just want to talk just a bit about ourselves and where we sit in the competitive landscape as we see it, and what we're offering. Right now our competitors don't deliver using their own vehicles. Now again, 2 years ago that wouldn't really have presented a problem. But pallet networks now are not as reliable as they used to be. I was talking to the owner of a company who I do some work with in the northeast, and they rely on pallet networks to deliver product to them and pallet networks to deliver products out. And he's now telling me that when he puts product out, historically he'd put product out for day 1, for day 2, he could rely on it. Now he's putting it out day 1, and he's lucky if it gets there day 3 or day 4, because the pallet networks are under so much pressure on the back of Brexit and everything that's happening with logistics across the globe. So putting all your reliance into a pallet network is a dodgy game, and it's not one that I would be looking to rely on for my event this year. When we look at our competitors again, and we look at the wash centres, I think Green Goblet might have a second one, I'm not 100% sure, but we've got the capacity for growth here. We're able to grow with you, we're able to grow quickly. For those of you that are operating in the capital, we're right in London. We've got a wash centre that's 12, 13 miles from the city centre. So again, from a sustainability angle, we can get cups to you quickly, we can wash them efficiently, and from an environmental point of view, we've got the best solution. We're the only operator that gives you that fully managed solution. We don't want to sell you a cup. We don't want you to lose the cups. They build, their model is on the sale of cups or the loss of cups. This is where we're different. And lastly, again, we don't charge loss charges. So just to summarise, what we've done is we've developed the UK's first fully managed reusable cup summary. It's designed to take the problem of reusable cups away from the bar operators, venues and brands. We want to help you turn the potential negative into a very strong positive environmental proposition and solution. And we want this to be part of your toolkit to allow you to win business. Yeah, we want this one planet, one chance reusable cup system to be part of your toolkit and be your partner. You know, in the same way that, you know, bar operators partner with brands, in the same way that, you know, brands partner with venues, we want to partner you by being your solution provider in this field. We want to become part of your team. Washing cups isn't easy, but we can do it. And what we think is that we can make it easy for you if you want to work with us. That's how I'd like to close my session tonight. Once John's finished, I'll just come up and say a few final words. I'd like to pass over to John Reid now, I've known John for about best part of a couple of years now, and I'll let John do an introduction to himself, but John's held a number of high-profile roles within in the sports market. He's worked with the English and Wales Cricket Board, he's worked with the RFU, he's done work with the British Lions, and a lot of that round about, you know, sort of managing media, managing PR. But John's other passion is running an organisation called Clean Up Britain. Clean Up Britain's a charity. Yeah. That has delivered some amazing results.